British Empire was looking for models to have stable Middle East colonies, right? So Britain has a very powerful empire at this time, late 1800s. They're looking for different systems and structures that might work to stabilize it. Amongst the British elite, they were pretty much divided. You had half of them who were very pro-Arab, very pro-Muslim. Some of them even purportedly converted. Some of the famous British spies, Kim Philby's dad, supposedly became a Muslim. Whether he really did or he was just being a spy, I don't know. But they had a very robust Orientalist structure which could learn the culture, master it, and then rule it for the British Empire. The Middle East, however, was so unstable, or so they said. You had constant assassinations of leaders. They were looking for what would be the most stable thing to put there. And so, as we said, many of them favored Arabic type leaders in government there. They were pro-Palestinian, or as we say now, pro-Palestinian. But you also had a faction under Lord Rothschild who were wanted to establish a specifically Zionist state. And this was controversial because you already had quite a few people who were already there who were, Arab Christian and Arab Muslim, obviously. So you get this decision on the part of the British to set up essentially a Zionist state. This is the British Mandate for Palestine, and it was motivated by a lot of the World Zionist Congress, the World Jewish Agency. This is known as the British Mandate for Israel, which ended in 1948 because after the UK mandate, you got essentially the decision that Jews needed to migrate there. Very controversial, and it's almost like maybe they wanted this to cause this division there, right? Because what happens is that the early army of Israel is created out of what's called the Haganah, and that's originally the Stern Gang. The Stern Gang was kind of an organized crime syndicate that functioned like the early protectors, you could say, of the Jews in Israel at this time. And they evolve into becoming a proto-intelligence agency and army. They're behind the famous assassination of one of the lords of the United Nations because of his policies. Lord Moyne was assassinated by the Urgun gang in 1944. And then they famously BOMB the King David Hotel. This is because now the Jews are getting tired of the British rule in Israel and in Jerusalem. They want to throw that off. Then it gets even more complicated because get this is the crazy part. From the British Empire perspective, they wanted to manipulate and rule. Then we get this. Check this out. During the years of 1945 to 1948, the Jewish Agency sought to establish a Jewish state in Palestine and remove the British restrictions on Jewish immigration. So Brits were now putting restrictions on who could go there when previously they want them there. These were resisted not only because of Britain's desires to maintain amicable relationship with the Arabs, but also from the obvious lack of sympathy for Zionist cause within the British government. So the Labour Party comes to power in 1945, and because the Labour Party were Fabian socialists, they actually were tended to be pro-Islam and pro-Arab. The immediate demand for the admission of 100,000 Jewish refugees from Europe was rejected by the British, and efforts to smuggle some of these in gave rise to conditions of quasi-warfare between British and Zionist groups. The Arab League of the neighboring Arab states, which had formed underneath British sponsorship in 1945, took as its chief aim the destruction of the Zionists and to block Jewish immigration. When the Labour government in June refused Zionist requests for admission of the 100,000 Jewish refugees and instead sought to arrest members of the Jewish Agency, the Irgun, in reprisal, blew up the British headquarters known as the King David Hotel in Jerusalem and got rid of 100 people. The World Zionist Congress elected figures who were supposedly moderate, like Chaim Weizmann and David Ben-Gurion. The former won the election. And then you got the support for British mandate from the United States, which was unobtainable since Washington generally favored the Jewish side, while the British favored typically the Arab side. Thus, death sentences were carried out on the various Jewish terror groups And in 1947, the British sought to escape the situation by appealing to the United Nations, and basically they just handed this over to the Israeli government. So then Ben Gurion steps into power in 1948 as the first president, I guess you could say, prime minister. September 20th, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem was the chief Muslim religious leader of the Levant and collaborator with Tiny Mustache Man, and he proclaimed an Arab government for all of Palestine. What's funny is that he's a British intelligence agent. He's the guy that looks like exactly like Ryan Gosling. You should look.
Yeah, I wanted to mention.
But he's an MI6 operative, and
what's his name?
I didn't know that.
The Grand Mufti of Jerusalem. Yeah, he's a British intelligence operative. And he's working together with Tiny Mustache Man. So basically, the British are always trying to play both sides of everything, and it seemed to not really work out here. And so you end up getting the through a bunch of PERROR, the establishment of a Zionist regime, which is not explicitly religious, but utilizes the religious imagery and ideology to sort of bolster support. So that's the irony here, is that Christian Zionists in America support all these people who are essentially intelligence operatives and organized crime people in 1948 who don't believe anything religious at all.
Wow, you ain't kidding.
I told you. Yeah.
That's funny. Wow. The truthers are going to lose their shit. The body double, you know. Okay,
Keanu Reeves apparently has had many doppelgangers throughout history, but this person is rather peculiar in his function and his cooperation with a man whose mustache was even tinier than mine, and that takes some work.
Yeah, that takes a lot. So, Jay, based on what you laid out here and the agreement that we went over a little bit there that we had on the screen, a lot of Americans who are maybe completely unaware of the history we went over it with dispensationalism and how it then plays into sort of the narrative of geopolitics in America, especially. They're unaware of it, but they're participating in it. So do you think that it's useless or futile to even educate those kinds of people who just have this kind of impulsive loyalty?
There's Ryan Gosling.
Oh, look at Ryan Gosling with a little mustache, man. Look at that. Yeah, they're talking about tea
And by
flavors.
the way, if you're interested in a book that covers the how he was British intelligence, it's F. William Ingdahl's book, Lost Hegemon, Whom the Gods Would Destroy. He's basically just detailed. There's a whole chapter on Grand Mufti as a British intelligence operative. But sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, like, what's the methodology now? Like, obviously doing a stream like this or anything like it that sort of sheds light on the summary of this view and how it plays into modern politics. I feel like we're in an era where people who take this immediate impulsive loyalty to Israel in the political arena, they're not going to really care what kind of history you bring up, right? So it's like, I guess what my question is, like, us as people who talk about this stuff and you know, analyze it and put it into its proper categories, is it useless? I mean, not to blackpill, but like, what is our duty here as far as like revealing it? Because I think it needs to be talked about more.
The key is to understand, to not hate. I'm not saying you do this, but to not hate groups of people in collectives, because people are raised in things and people are indoctrinated with things that are. And I was thinking about this the more I was, you know, ruminating on the Muslim debate from last night. Like, people are sort of imprisoned, you know, in these systems, and the systems are not going to make you happy. You know what I mean? They don't provide what they claim to provide. So I see a lot of the people being manipulated. You know, the 100,000 Jews that were trying to migrate, they were supposed to migrate. You know, it's sort of like refugees are geopolitical tools on a chessboard. And so we should feel sorry for the people, but at the same time, like, for example, with Muslim refugees, like, they're also being used. So there's no easy answers. And I think that the more that we do understand the historical nuances of the situation, we have to try to be compassionate and concerned for people. Not that you guys aren't, but there's a reactionary tendency, right, where people are just like, oh, it's all this group, oh, it's all that group. I mean, these people are pawns, they're tools, they're used. I think that the Rothschild group utilizes these people. I don't know that they really believe the religion. And so I see it as kind of like a tool that they use to control people, much like a lot of Muslim caliphs probably didn't believe the religion, but they use it as a tool to, energize armies and so forth to loot and plunder. I mean, Muhammad seems to have done that, right? So there's a pattern of using ideologies for these geopolitical ends. So I wouldn't say it's blackpilling. I would just say it's more so like understanding the nuances of the situation, and it's not always or totally one person's fault.